Hello and welcome everyone. Today's reading is from chapter 6 and stanza 30, and it goes, "He who beholds me everywhere and who beholds everything in me never loses sight of me, nor do I lose sight of him." Now, this may sound a little familiar, and if it does, it's because I was standing here exactly 2 weeks ago talking about it. But what happened was that I was thinking about this same saying just yesterday and the day before, and suddenly somebody whose name will not be disclosed comes to me last night and says, "Hey, can I please ask you to do the satsang tomorrow? I cannot make it." So I'm like, okay, sure. And I was just thinking about this, and I thought, well, why not? So I want to start with a little story from Swamiji. And many of you will remember this story. We were sitting in the audience for one of his talks in the last visit he had. And then he usually, in his last satsangs, the last year or so, his satsangs where he would take questions and answer them. And sometimes there were some tough questions or some personal questions, and this one was both. Somebody asked him, "Have you seen God?" And Swamiji said, "No, but I see him in you, except in you," he said. And everybody laughed, but then it was a very, very deep reply, and he later explained that, well, I have a right to keep my inner realization to myself, but people also have a right to, he sent an email in which he explained these things. People also have a right to know that he who is teaching them knows what he's talking about. So that was his answer, and was a very perfect answer, we could say. But so I see him in you, he said, and that ties with this in that it says, "He who beholds me everywhere and who beholds everything in me never loses sight of me." So last time I took this topic, I took it from the, you could say, I took the approach that in order to, what was I saying? In order to be happy, be happy. I said my message was be happy first, and then look around you, right? So if I were to resume, to make a summary of what how I took this topic last time, would be affirm the presence of God, affirm it everywhere, and then it will be so. So now I wanted to take a different approach, which is what I was thinking about these last few days. And for this approach, I'm going to get to it, but it's very important first to realize that we live, as Swami has said in the Raja Yoga book, I think, we live in a house of mirrors. So we're talking about seeing God everywhere, but actually what we perceive, what we see throughout our days, throughout all of interactions and everything, is only a reflection of what we have inside. This is, this may seem shocking at the beginning because it can change your whole perspective of how things are, but you just have to look at yourself a little bit, and then you realize it's true. At some point, I've fallen behind in this practice a little bit, but I need to take it up again. But at some point, I used to make it a very strong, point that every time I see something that disturbs me, something that annoys me, something that bothers me, I would catch myself, and before protesting or before complaining, even inwardly, I would say, well, this is bothering me, and why is it bothering me? And you should try it yourself, and you'll be surprised. Because every single time you'll find that it's bothering you because it's reflecting some quality inside of you that you don't like, that you're trying somehow to cover from yourself. Let's take an example. Let's say, I don't want to make it too personal. Well, let's say it really bothers you when people leave their coffee mug everywhere. So you go through the house or through the office, and there's always a coffee mug. It smells of coffee, and it's always in the random spots, and you know who did it, and they're always leaving their coffee mug everywhere. And no, we can know it's not such a great thing to do. We can laugh about it, but if it affects us, if it makes us annoyed, if it, stirs something inside, then we have to ask ourselves, why is this? And why, what do I have that is the same, maybe expressed in another way, that makes it so? So maybe you'll find out that you tend to leave your t-shirts everywhere, that you take them off, and then they stay there in the kitchen or they stay there anywhere. So it may not be the exact same thing, but the tendency at some level, if you dig enough, it will be there. And that way you can always, after you have overcome that, after you have realized that whatever you see outside is a reflection of what you have inside, then you won't have these problems anymore, because a great weight is taken off your shoulders. So now going back to beholding God in everything. So if we take this as a principle, what does that mean? It means that in order to behold God in everything and behold everything in God, then we first have to find Him. We have to perceive Him within ourselves. That is how it becomes possible. So I said something on the negative side because it's easier to see, but I have also noticed that the kindest people I know are the ones that are most likely to say, oh, this person is so kind, that person is so kind. The sweetest people I know are also saying everybody else is very sweet. And in a similar way, the men of God, they see God everywhere. There's a beautiful story actually about Ramakrishna Paramhans, in which he has some enemies. People didn't like him, and they were always trying to set him up, as they tried to set Master up to try to prove he was a fraud. And at some point, somebody sent, I think it was 2 or 3 women, to try to seduce him or allure him or do something, even anything they could get out of a reaction of Sri Ramakrishna would be a huge scandal, they thought. And what happened? As soon as the woman came to Ramakrishna's room, he saw them, and he beheld only Divine Mother in them, and he went into a trance, he went into samadhi, and they couldn't get him. He was somewhere else. And that's it. So we need to find Him within ourselves. And I thought, well, since the last time I covered this stanza, I spoke about things that we do in our daily lives, everything but meditation. Let me this time, just stress the importance of meditation. So we're here in this path, and we have come through Swami, through whoever, and we are in a path of Kriya Yoga. The core of our path is that meditation. Now I know that, I don't want to get into any controversies here, and I don't mean it in a controversial way, but our path, we often say it's service and meditation. It's service and meditation, but always every time we say these words, we say it with an emphasis of service. We say, yes, we're meditation, but we need to serve. So today I want to say, yes, we have to serve, but we need meditation. And, one of the things, again, we have Swamiji as our example for everything. And again, we have Swamiji as an example for everything, and we often justify our amount of service by saying how much Swami did. Look at how many books he wrote. Look at how many things he did. Look at all of these movies, books, lectures. He was everywhere. But we always have to make a point to make of Swami an example and not making an excuse, right? Because there's some stage of the life of Swami that we don't often speak about, which is, he founded Ananda when he was around 42, 43. And, I don't know what the situation was after that. I expect he meditated a lot. But let's look at what happened in those 20 whole years before he founded Ananda and before he got into this whole craziness of service that he has since then. If we read his books, if we read some of the early accounts there, we know that he used to meditate 5 to 6 hours a day. Shurjo even got a little scolded. He tells this story, so I can tell it, because he wasn't doing enough kriyas, and Swamiji said to him, well, I wish my body wasn't so frail so I could be a better example. And he did say that I used to meditate 5 or 6 hours a day when I was a young monk. Now, I say Shurjo, I'm sure it could apply to, if he were to ask me right now how much you meditate, he would say the same thing. I don't want to put somebody else on the spot. But, basically I want to encourage us all to develop that habit, and I have a very, very good reason to, which I'm going to get into later. But how we relate from that into our activity, also taking the example of Swamiji, he used to say that he would never do anything if it bothered his inner peace, no matter how urgent it could be, no matter how pressing it seemingly would be. If it bothered his sense of inner peace, he would not do it. He would wait sometimes for weeks, or sometimes he would not do it at all, because he treasured his inner peace most of all. And if our role model was doing that, then we should really very well strive to do that. And for that you need a foundation. That's what I'm trying to say. He had those 20 years of foundation before he founded Ananda, in which he built a fortress, in the good sense. He built a fortress inside of himself, in which he did have this inner peace that he didn't want to lose. He did have this feeling of joy that he did not have to lose. But if you don't have it from the beginning, then how can you lose it? You don't have it. So we need to learn to develop that. And it's up to each one of us, isn't it? Because meditation often, it becomes the first thing to go. Somehow it seems to us that, I have to finish this service or this work for today. Just today I'll finish my meditation a little earlier and go. Only today, and then it's only tomorrow. And before you know it, the habit has settled that you're meditating a half hour every morning and call it fine. It has happened to me. I think it must have happened to everybody. It's very easy because, as I was saying last time, you don't slide down into heaven. It's always going to be a conscious effort to keep that habit up. I was listening to Swami today, and he was mentioning Dronacharya in the Mahabharata. Now, Dronacharya, he represents habit, and interestingly, he is the guru of the Kauravas, who are the bad qualities, but he is also the guru of the Pandavas, who are the good qualities. But when it comes to the war of Kurukshetra, he sides with the Kauravas. He sides with the bad side. So we cannot rely only on habit. In fact, we should really develop a habit of meditating every day. But if we go only by habit, first of all, it will become less and less. Or if it stays the same, let me put it this way. We need that habit to meditate every day. But if we meditate out of habit, then we're doing something very wrong. Meaning, every time we sit down to meditate, it should be, actually, I learned this from Devarshi many, many years ago in a satsang he was giving, 2007 or 8. Every time we sit down to meditate, we should come with the attitude, today may be the day. Today, or right now, I'm going to give my all to find God right now. And it may happen, it may also not happen, but it will never happen unless we come with that attitude out to every single meditation. And that attitude is not something that comes out of habit, because it's a conscious, spontaneous decision, as Master will say, at every moment. Now, why was this on my mind so much? The importance of developing a good meditative habit and the importance of pushing not each other, pushing oneself a little bit. It's never going to be comfortable, let's face it. It's because, as many of you may know, the monks are going to move out of Pune. And it reminds me of this story that Master was walking in the gardens of Mount Washington with some disciple, and they were talking, and suddenly Master says, "Be quiet, be quiet." And why is it? Because Rajarji Janakananda, who was Master's most advanced disciple, was sitting there in samadhi. So Master said, "Let's not bother him." So they quietly continued in their way, and then after they were out of earshot, I guess, they continued talking, and Master said, "You have no idea how many blessings come to this work just because one person is sitting, meditating so deeply." Now, when I heard the news that the monks are going out of Pune, I thought, well, it's good for them, very, very, very happy for the new development, and congratulations. But what does it mean for us who stay here? Now, let's face it, we don't see the monks a lot in our daily lives. They have their own activities, they have their own, they're a little more secluded as it should be, and now there will be more. But just the fact that they're here, just the fact that we have people who have chosen to consciously, inwardly and outwardly, given their lives completely to God, it is a blessing. It is a blessing, and it blesses all of us. So now, it is the time for us to take it up, to really develop a strong inner life, because, and again, it is not going to be a sacrifice of our outer life, because our outer life will always reflect the state of our inner life. Always. And situations are neutral, so what outer life means is how it affects you. So if we have a very superficial and very restless inner life, then everything outside will be restless. Even if Jamal is sitting, I just saw him, is sitting there quietly and meditating, and in his perception everything is peaceful and blissful, in our perception the same situation will be restless and bad. So let's do that. Let's go deep inside and discover. There's so much to discover inside of us. Let's discover that inner world inside and then find it outside. Finally, I want to finish with one thought that I cherish and I had for a long time, and I think it's very true. What the real success. Now, we do all this service, we do everything we do because we want to serve Master, we want to help his work, and we want to help his mission out of, I hope, we need to remember, we don't serve some abstract thing called the work. We serve him because we love him, and we serve him because we want to do what he wants. But let us remember the things he wants the most is our God realization. And in the long term, the success of Ananda is not going to come from how many million people we got from Facebook. It's not going to come from how many classes we gave, how many even charity works we did, anything we did. The real test to see if Ananda was successful is whether saints have come out of Ananda. And it's up to each one of us to remember that and realize that that is the greatest kind of service we can give to Swamiji, to Master, and to the work. So